Hey guys, this is Adam with Next Roofing. We work with builders across DFW, and I want to walk you through the most common roofing mistakes in new construction. The ones that lead to delays, callbacks, and long-term issues if they're not handled correctly. So I'm going to move on to my first slide. The first mistake I see all the time in new construction is poor ventilation. And this is one of those issues that most people don't notice right away, but it causes problems over time. A lot of roofs, will look great from the outside, but that doesn't mean that the attic is breathing properly. When ventilation isn't set up correctly, you start getting heat buildup in the attic, moisture issues, premature shingle aging, and of course, higher energy costs for the homeowners. And in some cases, it can even lead to mold or decking damages. But the biggest issue is that ventilation has to be balanced. You need proper intake and exhaust working together. Typically, soffit vents bringing air in and ridge vents allowing it to exit. But what we see a lot in new construction is there's not enough intake ventilation. We'll see things like blocked or covered soffits, ridge vents installed without proper airflow, or even sometimes there's ventilation there, but it's not actually functioning. So on paper, it looks correct, but in reality, it's not doing its job. That's why ventilation isn't just a detail, it's part of the roofing system. If it's not done right, it affects the lifespan of the entire roof. So what are a few options when it comes to residential roofing ventilation? I'm going to move on to the next slide. So the first one is, of course, box vents, one of the most commons. These are about $20, around $20 a piece. They also come in plastic or metal. If you do go with this, I would go with the metal just because of the heat in Texas and also pest issues. The next one is turbines. These are about $60 a pop. They're better than the box vents, of course, but very much wind dependent. The next one are ridge vents. So these come out turnkey, labor and materials around $200 to $300. Very much recommended over the first two due to the increased amount of opening, which would not, work with box vents or turbines unless you want to see like 10 box vents around the house or 10 to 15 turbines. So, that just won't look so good. The next one is solar fans. These are anywhere between $150 and go all the way up to $700, depending on what watts you would prefer. But a standard 25 watt should be enough for every 1,000 square feet. So you can get 2 or 3 of them and you should be good to go. The second mistake, materials. Now, I know many builders opt into turnkey packages with roofers, which can be fine. I know a lot of builders go that route for simplicity, but here's something you need to watch out for. A lot of roofing contractors source shingles from different supply houses or even surplus lots, which can come from different manufacturing batches or even different plants. And the way that happens is, sometimes those stores that offer the best prices also have a buyback program where they will buy shingles back from, anyone, and then they'll match the colors and make a pallet. Most of the times it's just subs on, they'll take leftovers after a job completion and sell it to them. So even if it's the same brand and color on paper, on the pallet, it doesn't mean, those batches can vary slightly in shade and consistency. And so what happens is you end up with a roof that doesn't fully match. It's pretty noticeable, as I'll show you in this photo here. So especially on these larger slopes. And in this case, the manufacturer warranty will not kick in, and ultimately someone will be responsible for fixing it. And in the case of roofing, you might be looking at an entire roof replacement or, that entire slope. This can also become an issue for your buyers when it comes to them trying to purchase insurance and trying to get insured. And that's just not something you want tied to your build. On this slide, I want to point out something that builders should start making part of their routine. So when materials get delivered to your job site, take a minute to actually look at the shingle packaging. And if your bundles look like this, that's a red flag. Like exactly like this, take a screenshot because that's a red flag. In many cases, these are repackaged shingles from manufacturing defects or rejected batches that have made their way into the market. Originally, materials like this are not intended for full residential installs. They're typically meant for low risk uses like sheds or small structures, not a new construction, not a home. So if you see this, I would strongly recommend pausing the job and inspecting the material more closely before anything gets installed. Because once it's on the roof, this problem becomes yours. Issues with materials like this can lead to problems with, insurance approval. Probably has no warranty from the manufacturer, And in some cases, you're looking at even earlier failure or leaks. And at that point, the only fix is replacing the entire roof if these shingles were used. A quick check at the delivery can prevent a much bigger problem later. Mistake number 3, rushed installations. The third mistake, and honestly one of the biggest issues in new construction, is rushed installs. Now, most of the crews out here are made of subs that charge the crew leader by day, and it ends up being in the financial interest of the crew leader to rush the job, especially if they're working on low new construction margins, as we all know. Now, a roof can look completely finished from the ground, but it can still be installed wrong, right? And most of the problems that show up later, leaks, repairs, callbacks, usually do come from improper installation, and very rarely it's the materials. The reason this happens is simple, right? Crews are often pushed to move fast, whether it's scheduling pressure, too many jobs at once, or production-based crews. The focus becomes speed instead of precision. And when that happens, the details get missed. One of the biggest issues is improper nailing. The nails are too high, too low, overdriven, or angled incorrectly. The shingles don't hold the way they're supposed to. You won't notice these issues right away, but over time, it can lead to shingles lifting, sliding, or even failing in a windstorm. And while some of that may look minor, it all adds up. And I promise you, if it is any of these 3 issues that are causing the situation, the manufacturer as well as insurance will most likely not cover it and will gladly fight it. That's why rush installs is one of the most expensive shortcuts, I believe, in new construction. Okay, so at the end of the day, most of these issues are completely preventable. It just comes down to having the right system and the right team in place. And if you're building in the Dallas-Fort Worth area and want to avoid these problems from the start, feel free to reach out to me, and looking to work together and build some relationship with many of you builders.